is it still not?
This is a new one.
Oh,
so
okay.
we're good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. One we had, I mentioned last time, these are just things that I don't forget. It's been very good so far. You've done a great job. But with the beginning of reading here, like, period, just because, again, since it's not a routine right now for them to have, I, in the morning, I'm like, I'm never just to answer the question before we discuss it. So that they can try and recall that. So if you want to do that this time, you can. Otherwise, what you can do it because that way they can start to think about it, and then I did have a bit to start to recall it, and that I think that's a big age also. So yeah, but yeah.
Already did it.
Do it again.
Like around the I don't know how much you have wanted to do it in that thing. Has it been okay? Yeah, maybe 27, 29, goes 28. Alright. I'll just kind of focus on like process or like they're facilitating things.
Yeah.
Like,
I want to be able to step a little bit more into it.
yeah, addressing behavior. Yeah. Okay. And I'll kind of go back here and
I went to the daycare maybe a little bit.
I came back to you first.
Hello, everybody. You haven't noticed already? There's instructions at the
I've
front
assaulted two
of
people
the
already
staff
with that
room
damn
about
frisbee.
what we're gonna
I'm
do.
being recorded.
I know, right?
oh yes, you're what happened? How did it go?
I don't know. Just we're being recorded for some reason. I think it's center of it. I think it's
Is it like on
huh? Yeah, you see the red screen.
Alright, if you guys want to follow our instructions on the board, if you have not already, we've got some instructions for you to look at, which we don't normally have, but just to get us started for today. If you guys want to look at our board as you're coming in, we've got some instructions.
Right. So we have instructions at the front of the classroom about what we're going to be doing. I need you to bring up our copy of story, get copy of story on story.
Good afternoon, Anderson High School. This is your senior external vice president. This is College Go Week, so I have another expert to read for you guys today. Have you ever thought about taking a virtual or in-person college visit this year? With nearly 5,000 colleges and universities in the United States, you've got a lot of exploring to do. Plan a trip with your family or friends, or check out virtual tours from the comfort of your couch. Fall break is a great time to take college visits. Also, check your email today for today's activity. Tomorrow's scheme for College Go Week is dress for your future career. Dress up as the job you'd like to have. That's all I have for you guys today, and please remember, forever strong, forever proud, forever in.
Alright, hello everybody.
Alright, if you have not already noticed, we've got Miss Young here today. She is going to be leading us through the last part of our story, so if you can give her your attention, she's going to be our main instructor for today. So
Alright, So, we all should have copies of the young Goodman Brown story that we're going to read along with. We all should have copies of the worksheet. And we all should have at least started on question 1, which is about what you remember about what has happened in the story so far. We're going to take 1 minute to complete that if you have not already, and then we are going to begin. All right? So, in a moment, we are going to read the last section of Young Goodman Brown. So, in the previous days, we met our main character, Goodman Brown, who is married to a woman named Faith. He is a Puritan. And one day, he goes into the woods and meets with the devil. While they're walking and talking together, Goodman Brown talks about the people he believes are good, righteous people. And he quickly finds out that they are not. He becomes very distressed at this news. And near the end of yesterday's reading, he came across a pink ribbon, what his wife Faith always wears. He is scared. He does not know what has happened to her. He is lost in the woods. And now we are going to find out what happens.
Page 10 as well.
Yes, we are at the top of page 10.
Hold upon his eye. Harmony together. Goodman Brown cried out, and his cry was lost to his own ear by its unison with the cry of the desert. In the interval of silence, he stole forward until the light glare full upon his eyes. At one extremity of an open space, hemmed in by the dark wall of the forest, arose a rock, bearing some rude, natural resemblance either to an altar or a pulpit, and surrounded by 4 blazing pines, their tops aflame, their stems untouched, like candles at an evening meeting. The mass of foliage that had overgrown the summit of the rock was all on fire, blazing high into the night and fitfully illuminating the whole field. Each pendant twig and leafy festoon was in a blaze. As the red light arose and fell, a numerous congregation alternately shone forth, then disappeared in shadow, and again grew, as it were, out of the darkness, peopling the heart of the solitary woods at once. A grave and dark-clad company, quoth Goodman Brown. In truth, they were such. Among them, loitering to and fro between gloom and splendor, appeared faces that would be seen next day at the council board of the province, and others which, Sabbath after Sabbath, looked devoutly heavenward and benignly over the crowded pews from the holiest pulpits in the land. Some affirmed that the lady of the governor was there. At least there were high dames well known to her, and wives of honored husbands, and widows, a great multitude, and ancient maidens, all of excellent repute, and fair young girls who trembled lest their mother should espy them. Either the sudden gleams of light flashing into the obscure field bedazzled Goodman Brown, or he recognized a score of the church members of Salem village, famous for their especial sanctity. Good old Deacon Goodman had arrived, and waited at the skirts of that venerable saint, his reverend pastor. But, irreverently consorting with these grave, reputable, and pious people, these elders of the church, these chaste dames and dewy virgins, there were men of dissolute lives and women of spotted fame, wretches given over to all mean and filthy vice and suspected even of horrid crimes. It was strange to see that the good shrank not from the wicked, nor were the sinners abashed by the saints. Scattered also among their pale-faced enemies were the Indian priests or powwows, who had often scared their native forest with more hideous incantations than any known to English witchcraft. But where is faith? Thought Goodman Brown, and as hope came into his heart, he trembled. Another verse of the hymn arose, a slow and mournful strain, such as the pious love, but joined to words which expressed all that our nature can conceive of sin, and darkly hinted at far more. Unfathomable to mere mortals is the lore of fiends. Verse after verse was sung, and still the chorus of the desert swelled between like the deepest tone of a mighty organ. And with the final peal of that dreadful anthem, there came a sound, as if the roaring wind, the rushing streams, the howling beasts, and every other voice of the unconcerted wilderness were mingling and according with the voice of guilty man in homage to the Prince of all. The four blazing pines threw up a loftier flame, and obscurely discovered shadows and visages of horror on the smoke wreaths above the impious assembly. At the same moment, the fire on the rock shot readily forth and formed a glowing arch above its base, where now appeared a figure. With reverence be it spoken, the figure bore no slight similitude, both in garb and manner, to some grave divine of the New England churches. "Bring forth the converts!" cried a voice that echoed through the field and rolled into the forest. At the word, Goodman Brown stepped forth from the shadow of the trees and approached the congregation, with whom he felt a loathful brotherhood by the sympathy of all that was wicked in his heart. He could have well nigh sworn that the shape of his own dead father beckoned him to advance, looking downward from the smoke wreath, while a woman, with dim features of despair, threw out her hand to warn him back. Was it his mother? But he had no power to retreat one step, nor to resist even in thought, when the minister and good old Deacon Goodman seized his arms and led him to the blazing rock. Thither came also the slender form of a veiled female, led between Goody Cloyce, that pious teacher of the catechism, and Martha Carrier, who had received the devil's promise to be queen of hell. A rampant hag was she, and there stood the proselytes beneath the canopy of fire. "Welcome, my children," said the dark figure, "to the communion of your race. You have found thus young your nature and your destiny. My children, look behind you." They turned, and flashing forth as it were in the sheet of flame, the fiend worshippers were seen. The smile of welcome gleamed darkly on every visage. "There," resumed the sable form, "are all whom ye have reverenced from youth. You deem them holier than yourselves, and shrank from your own sin, contrasting it with their lives of righteousness and prayerful aspirations heavenward. Yet here are they all in my worshiping assembly. This night it shall be granted to you to know their secret deeds, how hoary bearded elders of the church have whispered wanton words to the young maids of their households. How many a woman, eager for widow's weeds, has given her husband a drink at bedtime and let him sleep his last sleep in her bosom. How beardless youths have made haste to inherit their father's wealth. And how fair damsels, blush not, sweet ones, have dug little graves in the garden and bidden me, the sole guest, to an infant's funeral. By the sympathy of your human hearts for sin, ye shall scent out all the places, whether in church, bedchamber, street, field, or forest, where crime has been committed, and shall exult to behold the whole earth one stain of guilt, one mighty blood spot. Far more than this, it shall be yours to penetrate in every bosom the deep mystery of sin, the fountain of all wicked arts, and which inexhaustible supplies more evil impulses than human power, than my power at its utmost can make manifest in deeds. And now, my children, look upon each other." They did so, and by the blaze of the hell-kindled torches, the wretched man beheld his faith, and the wife her husband, trembling before that unhallowed altar.
All right, we're going to pause there and look at question 2. What does the devil want Goodman Brown to do? What does the devil want Goodman Brown to do? Does anybody know? We don't have any volunteers. I'm going to have to do feeding chart roulette and pick somebody at random. All right. So, Adeline. What? Oh, she's not here? Okay, then Camden. What does the devil want Goodman Brown to do? Where is he right now? Right, he's in the forest. So he is in a clearing in the forest where a bunch of people are assembled. Why are they all there? Why are all of these people in the forest? Samara, why are all these people in the forest? Right, so they're gathering for something. They're gathering for a ceremony. Does anybody know what's going to be happening at the ceremony? A ritual. All right, so the text, the story, calls Goodman Brown and Faith proselytes, which, if we look at the definition here, means converts. So, what all this ceremony is for, and what the devil wants, is for Goodman Brown to join in the devil worship. He wants him to join in the devil worship and give up his faith.
You said the devil worship?
Mm-hmm. Yes. The devil wants Goodman Brown to join in the devil worship and sin. All right, we're going to take a minute to write down our answers, and then we're going to go back to the story.
Lo, there ye stand, my children, said the figure in a deep and solemn tone, almost sad with its despairing awfulness, as if his once angelic nature could yet mourn for our miserable race. Depending upon one another's hearts, ye had still hoped that virtue were not all a dream. Now are ye undeceived. Evil is the nature of mankind. Evil must be your only happiness. Welcome again, my children, to the communion of your race. Welcome, repeated the fiend worshippers in one cry of despair and triumph. And there they stood, the only pair, as it seemed, who were yet hesitating on the verge of wickedness in this dark world. A basin was hollowed naturally in the rock. Did it contain water reddened by the lurid light, or was it blood, or perchance a liquid flame? Herein did the shape of the evil dip his hand and prepare to lay the mark of baptism upon their foreheads, that they might be partakers of the mystery of sin, more conscious of the guilt of others, both in deed and thought, than they could now be of their own. The husband cast one look at his pale wife, and Faith at him. What polluted wretches would the next glance show them to each other, shuddering alike at what they disclosed and what they saw? Faith! Faith! Cried the husband. Look up to heaven and resist the wicked one. Whether Faith obeyed, he knew not. Hardly had he spoken when he found himself amid calm night, and solitude, listening to a roar of the wind, which died heavily away through the forest. He staggered against the rock and felt it chill and damp, while a hanging twig that had been all on fire besprinkled his cheek with the coldest dew.
All right. We're going to pause here again and look at question number 3. What is preventing Goodman Brown from doing what the devil wants?
His wife.
His what?
His wife.
His wife. All right. Could somebody elaborate on that? How is his wife preventing him from joining the devil worship?
He's doing it because how much he loves his wife and he doesn't want him to do that and not be with her.
Right. So if we think back to how Goodman Brown has thought about his wife for the entire story, he thinks of her as pure, as sinless. At the very beginning, his plan was to go into the woods, resist the devil, and then go back to Faith and live happily ever after. Now, he sees Faith here, and she's about to join in this devil worship. What does he say to her? He cries, "Faith, Faith, look up to heaven and resist the wicked one." Goodman Brown wants to stay a good person, and he wants his wife to stay a good person. So, that is why he does not give in to what the devil wants. Because he loves his wife, and he wants them both to be good people. We're going to see how that turns out for him, but that is why he is resisting the devil. All right, we're going to take a minute to write down our answers, and then we're going to finish the story. Page 13.
The next morning, young Goodman Brown came slowly into the street of Salem village, staring around him like a bewildered man. The good old minister was taking a walk along the graveyard to get an appetite for breakfast and meditate his sermon, and bestowed a blessing as he passed on Goodman Brown. He shrank from the venerable saint as if to avoid anathema. Old Deacon Goodman was at domestic worship, and the holy words of his prayer were heard through the open window. "What God doth the wizard pray to?" quoth Goodman Brown. Goody Cloyce, that excellent old Christian, stood in the early sunshine at her own lattice, catechizing a little girl who had brought her a pint of morning's milk. Goodman Brown snatched away the child as from the grasp of the fiend himself. Turning the corner by the meeting house, he spied the head of Faith with the pink ribbons, gazing anxiously forth and bursting into such joy at sight of him that she skipped along the street and almost kissed her husband before the whole village. But Goodman Brown looked sternly and sadly into her face and passed on without a greeting. Had Goodman Brown fallen asleep in the forest and only dreamed a wild dream of a witch meeting? Be it so, if you will, but alas, it was a dream of evil omen for young Goodman Brown. A stern, a sad, a darkly meditative, a distrustful, if not a desperate man did he become from the night of that fearful dream. On the Sabbath day, when the congregation were singing a holy song, he could not listen, because an anthem of sin rushed loudly upon his ear and drowned all the blessed strain. When the minister spoke from the pulpit with power and fervent eloquence, and with his hand on the open Bible of the sacred truths of our religion, and of saint-like lives and triumphant deeds, and of future bliss or misery unutterable, then did Goodman Brown turn pale, dreading lest the roof should thunder down upon the grave blasphemer and his hearers. Often, waking suddenly at midnight, he shrank from the bosom of faith. And at morning or eventide, when the family knelt down at prayer, he scowled and muttered to himself and gazed sternly at his wife and turned away. And when he had lived long, and was borne to his grave a hoary corpse, followed by Faith, an aged woman, and children and grandchildren, a goodly procession, besides neighbors not a few, they carved no hopeful verse upon his tombstone, for his dying hour was gloom.
All right. So a sad ending for Goodman Brown. Let's look at question number 4. How is Goodman Brown's life changed by his experience in the woods?
He's not good anymore.
He's not good anymore. What do you mean by that?
Like, he's not really experiencing despair.
So he doesn't see the good in himself. He only sees his evil. He came so close to becoming a devil worshiper. How can he think of himself as a Puritan anymore? What else about Goodman's life was changed by his experience in the woods? Jaden.
Oh,
Not here? Yeah. Sorry, this type is different. Letitia? Bosom is another word for chest. How was Goodman Brown's life changed by his experience in the woods? So we talked about how he is sad, he isn't happy with himself anymore. What about his relationship with other people?
He started to hate his dad, I guess.
Right, he's very distant from his wife. If we think back to the beginning of the story, they're kissing, they're happy with each other. Now, it seems like he barely wants to touch her. All right. And what about when he first comes out of the woods and he sees all of these people that he's known for his entire life? What's different now?
He doesn't know them like how he used to.
Right. They're almost complete. They almost seem like new people to him. He doesn't know who they really are anymore. He thought he did, but he didn't. So, how is Goodman Brown's life changed by his experience? He's more miserable, and he doesn't feel connected with the people around him anymore. All right, we're going to take a minute to write down our answers, and then we're going to flip to the back for something a little bit different. All right. So if we look at questions 5 and 6, we are going to be answering these a little bit differently. We're going to be doing something called think, pair, share. Has anybody heard of that before?
No.
All right. Well, it's very simple. So we are going to we're going to try to answer these questions first as individuals on our own, then as small groups, and then as a class. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to think about our own answers to the questions and write them down. After we've had enough time to do that, I am going to put you into small groups with your table. I'm going to pair you with your table, and you are going to share your answers with each other. Talk about what you said and listen to what other people said. You're going to decide on what you think is the best idea and pick a representative from your small group. And then we are going to share with the class. I'm going to call on each table to share their idea, all right? So everybody needs to have something ready in answer to the question, for the class discussion. All right? We're going to start with question 5. There are several points in the story where Goodman Brown could have made a different decision. What would his life have been like if he stayed home with Faith instead of going to the woods? What would his life have been like if he completed the ceremony instead of changing his mind? Pick one of these 2 options to describe and explain your reasoning. And that should be at least 2 complete sentences. We're going to have a bit to answer that on our own, and then we're going to move on to question number 6. You should all be answering question 5 right now. We should all be writing down our answers to question 5, prepare for the group discussion. Alright, if you're not done with question 5 yet, that's okay, but we're going to look at question 6. Think about the message of young Goodman Brown. What is Nathaniel Hawthorne trying to say about what he believes about people? Do you agree? Why or why not? So we're looking for what does Nathaniel Hawthorne believe about people, and do you agree? We need at least 3 complete sentences.
What did he say about people? What did he say about people?
Based on the story, what can you tell Nathaniel Hawthorne believes about people? What are people like, according to Hawthorne?
So think about how these characters act, what their sort of personality or the way they interact with each other, their character as a person. Okay, so what are people like based on this story? Are they good people? Are they honest?
going to take 2 more minutes to finish up our answers, and then we will begin our small groups.
This is question 5 only, or for 5 and 6?
Yes. We need to finish question 5 and 6. We're going to wrap up our thoughts on question 5 and 6, and I am going to assign you to your groups. So as a reminder, you are going to tell your group what you answered, you're going to listen to what other your group members have answered, and you are going to come to an agreement about what you want to share. You're going to need to pick out one group representative who will share that idea with the entire class. Are there any questions? Okay. So, you are going to join that table. Everybody's going to do a group discussion. All right. Can you join that table? And can you join that table? All right. Okay. So we are going to start by discussing just question 5. We're going to look at what other decision he could have made, how it would have changed his life. And in addition, I would like for you to decide if the original version or the new version would be better. Which would be better for Goodman Brown's life? All right.
Since I'm better, I'm going to speak first. Oh, goodness.
Go ahead and speak.
I feel like, if you stay home, I feel like, it's like it would be better. If you stay home, I feel like it's much better. Because you want to know that the people are bad, and if they don't know, then they can't hurt you.
How high that rate. So if you come out like this, your fourth grade, my shit is like a 6, 7.
You should have stayed home.
My shit is 6 or 7.
You should have left the woods anyway.
So you should at least
That's
have
why
like,
he's traumatized now. He has such a lot.
yeah, 12 and 14 higher than that.
What do you think?
Yeah. Anyway, do we think that version is better or worse?
Yeah.
For like,
You're right.
but like story wise, I think it's first. No, it's not like
Because,
like
because I would say no, but your readings will probably be a little bit lower. So like you probably have like a lot of words you already understand.
Well, it would be helpful for everyone. I don't know.
You do a lot of work last, and then you start.
The rules will what's going on with the board over here? The board
Alright, do you know what you're going to share? And who is your representative? 2 more minutes discussing, and then we're going to share our ideas. So everybody needs to have a different way for the story to go, and whether they believe it is better.
Because I think the author is trying to say people are always really good because I'll like read my things. Goodman, the Goodman. I already know what I'm doing. Anyways, because Goodman believed that he was good when he went to the woods and showed them they're not. So I feel like that she's trying to say that.
What? I knew. Why did you do that? Well, one of us knew. You wasn't supposed to. He was like, I got to my birthday. Oh,
Alright, we are going to turn our eyes to the front. We are going to silence our voices. And we are going to share what we came up with as groups. Alright, so let's start with the far table. Which of the 2 options did you pick? And how would it have changed his life?
Well, options like if he chose to stay home or if he chose to stay home, not that one.
Alright, so what would happen if Brown had decided to stay home? What would have changed?
He would have maintained his innocence, trusting humanity, and peaceful relationship with his wife.
Alright, he would have maintained his innocence and his trusting relationship with his wife. And did you decide if that would have been better for him or worse for him in the long run than what actually happened?
Better.
Alright, and how come?
Because he would have become hateful and distrusting of the people around him.
Alright, if he had kept his innocence, he wouldn't have become hateful of the people around him. Alright, so let's go to this group. What did you pick and what did you decide? So if Goodman Brown had stayed home, he would have continued to have a loving relationship with his wife. All right, and do you think that would be better or worse than what actually happened? Okay. So how come?
Because if he went, he would have become like sinful and stuff.
Right. So in going to the forest, he, in a way, became more sinful. And that damaged his relationship with his wife. All right, let's go to this table. What did you pick and what did you decide? Okay, if he completed the ceremony.
We felt that if you completed the ceremony, then his life just really went bad. In some cases, this would end his life possibly without a voice, or he would have to stay in the forest and become
Ah. So if he had completed the ceremony, he might not have been able to re-enter life in the community, right? And would this be better or worse than what actually happened? All right, how come?
because then he wouldn't be able to still follow his faith. He would still go to church and be around his community and he'd still be able to know what to want.
Right. So, in what actually happens in the story, he is very distanced from his community and his faith. However, he would have probably been even more so if he had completed the ceremony. So it's good that he left when he did, right? Okay, this group. What did you think and what did you decide about it? Okay, so if he had stayed with faith at the beginning. Alright, so he would have, the next day would have been like every other day. He would have continued his routine. And would that be better or worse than what actually happened? Way better? All right, how come?
Because I didn't know about the other people that it wasn't doing nothing bad to him.
So even though he didn't know the truth about the people around him, it wasn't doing him any harm. So he was kind of in an ignorant bliss, right?
Yeah.
All right. And our last group. What did you pick and what did you decide? Who would be willing to share what your group talked about?
If they can stay at home, then his life would, and then they would have gay and bad and
All right, so if he had stayed with faith at the beginning, his life would have continued to be happy. And would that be better or worse than what actually happened? Okay, how come?
first they are safe and there before
So if he had stayed home with faith, they would have been happy. They would have been safe. They wouldn't have known about the world. All right, so in the next few minutes, we are going to quickly discuss question 6. We're not going to have time to discuss it as a class, but just share with your group members what you believe is the main idea of Goodman Brown. What does Nathaniel Hawthorne believe about people, and do you agree?
What are the answers?
What does Hawthorne believe about people, and do you agree? All right, I know it's coming to the end of class, but we do still have 4 more minutes, so I would still like you to pay attention until then. All right? So we are going to be discussing question number 6 with our group. So what do we believe Nathaniel Hawthorne was trying to say?
That like, no matter how much people try to like be like morally perfect, they'll still be like sinful.
That's a really good takeaway, that you can't avoid being sinful. Everybody is sinful. All right, and do you agree with that? All right. So I heard this group talking about question number 6. So what do you decide about what Hawthorne believes?
He believed that she thought people were always at a big scene.
Alright, and is that something that you all agree with? Yeah. So why is that?
Oh, I didn't feel like that.
Wait, why do you believe that? That people aren't always good?
I don't.
Well,
That's why your breath stinks.
right, you can never know what somebody is saying.
Well, I did it. Got it. Why are you so close to me?
What do you find out what your myself was? I believe that he was trying to make a point.
Okay, if you have completed your worksheet, turn it in the back tray. If you have completed your worksheet, turn it in the tray. If you have not, it will be due tomorrow. It'll be due tomorrow, all right?
Black, gold,